Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to How to Stay Married So Far. I nearly said How to Confessions, Modern Parent so far.
Or welcome to Coffee Moaning.
Welcome to Coffee. I sometimes get lost in a fog of content. So this is, I saw an article in the Times recently that I think itself was pegged to the fact that Matt Hancock has split with his wife. Only a couple of days ago, Michael Gove is splitting from his wife. Sue Perkins is splitting from her wife. And Rylan is splitting from his husband. So quite a few sort of high profile separations, divorces, what have you, and all kind of marked by the fact, though I hasten to add, it could well be coincidence. As we come out of lockdown, the unfurling of lockdown, it feels like there may be a sort of synchronicity there that as people come out of lockdown, are they suddenly being able to suddenly act on something maybe they felt or discovered during lockdown about their relationship, i.e. time to move on, jog on, get out, or, to put it more kindly, perhaps people just have seen it as an opportunity to finally change. It's like the end of things is as much the beginning of new things too, isn't it? So it's a curious time we find ourselves at. So I thought it would be interesting to have a look at the 8 reasons that this article in the Times gives for why people cheat, and then to talk around it. What are your thoughts, just as I run through those various high-profile divorces?
Well, I don't know, because I don't know about anyone's private life, so I don't know. But I just think it's an indicator of probably what's going on across the country.
Right.
That people are, coming out of the worst possible 2 years. And people have been thrown together for far too long every day in, day out.
Right.
People that normally would go off to work in and have a very separate day, and maybe have very separate lives, separate social lives.
Yeah.
Very clear definition of what the roles are.
Yeah.
I know that there's been a lot of rowing. It hasn't for us because of course our kids are homeschooled, on who's doing the cooking and who's doing the homeschooling and who. And, it's been, women very much have had to go back to being the 50s housewife.
Right.
And there's been a lot done on this, actually, that women's depression has increased massively. Because usually it's men over women.
Yeah.
But through the pandemic, and because that's, not being able to work and having to go back to that really, the what a lot of women would describe as menial, boring time. I have to say, the kitchen has become, and I love being in the kitchen, has become through the pandemic. My God, can we clear it up one more time? Can I make one more sandwich?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it is a working kitchen as well as a.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking. I'm talking generally. So I think so I think that people that aren't, that don't spend a lot of time at home like we do. We work a lot from home. I think people that worked at home anyway will have found the pandemic easier with their relationship. A lot of partners don't socialise ever together. Doesn't mean they have. That's not a good thing. That can be a way a relationship works. But I think people have missed having that sort of social break outside of their relationship.
And physical break. I mean, I think physical break too, because although you're right, a lot of work happens from home. We work together a lot we always have done over the years in telly and on social media, what have you, writing a book, whatever it is, we've worked together quite a lot. And there's a norm to that, but also there's the, we've missed for the last 18 months the ability to go on location, to go out, to shoot, to move, to just simply be anywhere other than in each other's spaces.
And I mean, if you use us as an example, we have got the kind of marriage where we've got an ongoing conversation, but a lot of people are managing their relationships without really having much conversation anymore, without ever really looking at their partner, and so I think fissures that were there, or great cracks, that were there, will have definitely
been magnified.
Been stressed. I mean, I was reading in that article. Did you read all the different people that have affairs?
There are a number of. If you go and read it, there are a number of examples. I have to say, I felt the hand of someone almost perfectly constructing them. I'm not bringing the journalist into disrepute, but it didn't. I thought this is a bit too perfect a contribution.
Yeah, but I suppose there are going to be those situations. You're working from home, you're arguing the whole time about who homeschools the kids, who cooks the dinner, looking at each other, people not bothering anymore to dress up, to put a bit of makeup on, to shave, to do all those things that you would normally have to do because the outside world demands it of you. And I think people have just got on each other's ticks.
immediately checking. Christ.
People who just got on each other's tits, you know.
Yeah.
We've been very lucky because we've basically been in a live TV situation every day because of our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So every day we've done our live show. So, you know, we've had to make an effort with what we're thinking about and what we're talking about. And the way
I've worn shirts on about 5 occasions, actually.
Yeah, and the way that we're thinking and we're looking. So we've been forced to do that. I think if we hadn't had the channel and therefore a real focus, I think we would have really struggled because depression has people who've never been depressed before have got to are struggling with depression as we've said multiple times through this pandemic. The tsunami of mental health issues. Not only that, you have children, you know, we've found it stressful with our girls, you know, worrying about them all the time. That, as we know, can absolutely suck the oxygen out of a relationship. If you've got toddlers and babies and then you've got no relief, I'm surprised the whole world isn't getting divorced.
Yeah, quite.
So you've got, this year, we've got all of that. But then, of course, also running along that, you've got all the normal reasons why people would have an affair.
Do you think there's a reason though? I mean, I read somewhere that apparently there's a sense or a feeling or a belief that more men are having a midlife crisis brought about due to lockdown and everything that's gone on. Yeah, I mean, it's classic, isn't it?
Oh, why? Is that
no, but is this why men are running off?
time?
Is this why men are running off? Is it that they want to change? Have affairs or infidelities or why do the reasons people cheat? Have they been curtailed by the simple fact that you can't go out, you can't meet, you can't, I mean, although obviously Matt Hancock did sort of find a way around the corner.
Plenty of people have. I mean, I think, you know, there's been online stuff. There's whole websites where you can have affairs. I know what you mean. In all those letters, they did seem a bit too perfect.
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
My phone cut out.
We tend not to cut
storage.
these. Yeah.
I mean, though it just pains. Oh, men have found it more difficult. More men are having affairs, but. To play devil's advocate, I suppose if there has been an emasculation going on, you know, a man that would normally, you know, define himself by the fact that he goes out, he earns the money, he does all of that, and then he's been slopping around in his joggers all year, not going out with his mates, not, you know, I mean, maybe
yeah,
as
I mean,
we're
a lot
coming
of
out, people are looking for a bit of excitement.
Yeah.
They're looking to feel like they want somebody to look at them in the way that they used to be looked at.
Well, a lot of people want status. I mean, there's one case in here of an insurance salesman who talks about going to a sort of conference of sorts, and then he opened his mouth. I mean, I thought the piece was kind of funny and ironic about insurance, finding it exciting and inspiring. But he said how someone in the crowd found him inspiring and suddenly felt the centre of attention. I mean, I think, but aren't these things that, in a sense, these are the defining features of relationships that sort of run aground anyway? The idea that you're not seen for what you were when you first met.
Yeah.
You're not, you know, what drew someone to someone because was their articulacy and their this and that and the other. And that's just not even wanted or listened to or kind of respected anymore, or it's the generosity of spirit and da-da. And so there are ways of finding all those things that you once found lovely. It's just, you get used to them, they're no longer original, they're no longer new. But presumably, I mean, maybe lockdown has just kind of microwaved all of that and made it faster.
Yeah, I mean, I do think a lot of people, their relationship has improved because they've had to spend time with each other, and they've realised that, oh Christ, you know, I'm married to this person, but how much time do I actually spend with them?
Right.
And we've just become a box-ticking relationship. So there's definitely, I've read plenty of articles about that as well. But I think, you know, just to come away from the pandemic, because I think the reasons are obvious why there would have been more likelihood of people's relationships struggling. But the 8 reasons is interesting, isn't it? Because those 8 reasons would be with pandemic or without pandemic.
Yes,
you know,
true.
Boredom. Some people just are born to be unfaithful.
Well,
you know, there are some people that...
I'm just pulling them up.
That, you know, it's a risk. It's risk-taking, and risk-taking is incredibly seductive.
Yes.
You know, some people just have to be the centre of attention. Some people want their sex life to be exactly the same as it was when they first met, but some very immature people.
Yes.
You know, so all those reasons, and also there are the people that are just on a self-destruct who actually, when they feel like they're in a loving and meaningful relationship, want to try and destroy it because it freaks them out. And that's a real thing.
yeah. Well, before we run through them, the 8, and we'll see what you think, share what you think on each of these. How do you think we've coped? I mean, I think we've actually done because there's been such a long rolling end to, and is there going to be an end to COVID? I think around Christmas we did something about how COVID's impacted our marriage, but I feel we've kind of done all right. I mean, I don't feel like I've got
but
particularly bored of you.
For all the reasons we spoke about at the beginning, which is this is not that different from our relationship.
No.
We haven't had that terrible shock of homeschooling and working together and being at home all day. We've got a nice big house, so we've got a lovely garden, so we haven't had a lot of the pressures that a lot of people have. At the beginning we were certainly worried about money because we didn't know what was going to happen, and that I did add some stress. So yeah, I think I think it's been harder as we've come out than when it was in. Because I think for you, and I think for a lot of people who have social anxiety, there was a relief somewhere.
Can I just take
not a relief,
No, but I need to pull you up on this because this
I
is.
wasn't finished saying what I was going to say.
No, but I keep.
No, hang on, because a lot of people, and we've spoke to a lot of people throughout the pandemic, saying it's been really nice. People having the same kind of anxiety as we would, and the same worry, because people that live with anxiety, it feels like the whole of the rest of the world is having this marvelous time, and they're stuck with this anxiety, and there was a comfort in that. That the whole world was in a similar spot.
Yeah. That, I would agree. I thought you were going to go on to say that there's a social anxiety as to not wanting to get out. I mean, I think there's a comfort in knowing what the limitations are. But I would say that parking my bipolar crisis to one side, and that must have been evolving and developing and growing and cultivating, if you like, over obviously a much longer period of time than when it kicked in about 6 weeks ago, fully. I would characterise myself as really looking forward to getting out, but not in a sort of a dash for freedom or a grab for kind of oxygen. It was like, fucking hell, no. Even with social anxiety as a component of all of the other bloody isms I seem to occupy, actually getting back out in the world and connecting and reconnecting and re-engaging and doing all those things was something that I was quite excited about. But you're right, yeah, for a while there was that sort of camaraderie and that everyone was brought to the same place of fucking hell.
Well, I think part of why you're bipolar,
shitty.
I think part of why you had a major breakdown a few weeks ago, which you did, was because it was a lot that crashed in all at once. Obviously, like you say, this has been something of yours for a long time. But I think that you had, I think part of your breakdown was due to the massively quick change coming out of lockdown.
I don't know if I agree.
You don't?
No, I don't.
Oh.
No, not at all.
What?
No, I mean, I don't. I mean, I think that's another.
It played a part.
I think that's another conversation. No, I think the timing was odd. I think it was far more to do with the fact that actually, for the first time in lockdown, because it's been so stupidly busy, and we have been doing live content, generating all sorts of content, writing books, creating all sorts of, working with brands, doing all sorts of things, making films, blah, blah. I think it was the first moment, as we've talked about before, where I stopped.
I think coming out of the pandemic for everybody has been very, very destabilising for a whole host of different reasons. And I think, like somebody said the other day on one of our lives, didn't they, on YouTube, you're kind of like, when you're in the firefighting mode, which is what we've all been in, there's a whole lot of other stuff that's going on that you don't almost have the time to think about or look at. And I think that's probably what's happened for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's also trying to connect back to I think in a weird way, it's been so long that we've been in lockdown and in this crisis that we all have a slightly idealised image of what life was like before. It's become sort of romanticised.
I can't remember.
No.
It's like before I had kids, I can't remember what it was like.
But it is this sort of idyll of, being able to see that person, being able to do that. And I thought what was quite funny about the first week when first restrictions were lifted was how many people sort of said, I ran out for like every day of the week, and then I kind of felt like I needed to take a hasty retreat because we weren't used to it.
Well, you go
so
out,
I think in relationships there are similar pressures. And anyway, but going back to these 8 reasons people cheat. Do any of these resonate with you guys? Some of them resonated with me for sure. So number 1 is lack of emotional connection in the marriage. An affair is often the end point of feeling taken for granted, which is possible even if sex is still happening. No one wants to feel used, and this psychologist has noticed that women in particular tire of feeling like the waitress at the banquet of their husband's life. I feel that this was indicated by Michael Gove's wife in an article, wasn't it? That this crisis has sort of removed the trappings and trimmings of the big I am man. And this is less about whether a man has been emasculated, but a man can feel emasculated because all the trimmings of his power or status. And I think the challenge for a lot of men is that status, unfortunately, comes with money, earning, job, being in charge of this many people, being bossy, and all that kind of stuff. Shouldn't be, but it's the case. No, it's not to say that it's not like that for a lot of women too. It is. But when you remove and strip away all of the capacities to be able to sort of prove yourself in those ways, if you like, men, ironically, could well feel, or women in those powerful positions could well feel that they're being taken for granted too. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think on the thing of emotional connection, I think people just get really lazy and just take shortcuts and kind of don't really listen. So don't really listen to each other, or always ahead of the game, working out what somebody's actually said rather than thinking what they've said than what they've actually said. And I think and this is a huge generalization, but mostly women want to talk about their feelings and what the situation is more than men do. Men get very fearful often when a woman says, right, can we just talk about this? Oh my God, what's going to happen? Is the sky going to fall in? So what happens is those building blocks start to come up in a relationship where more and more it's easy to just take shortcuts around the wall than actually find out. So I think, God, when I think of a lot of my friends, they might like their partner, but they're very little emotional connection, very little.
It's weird, isn't it? I suppose this is where I need to sort of make a point and say I feel a level of gratitude that we have, the kind of conversations that we do and that we talk about the kind of stuff that we talk about. I mean, I think even when you're in an open, emotionally engaged and interactive and communicating relationship, I think assumptions can still be made. And I think, you can still be sort of pigeonholed in what it is you're feeling or what you're saying. Do you know what I mean? I mean,
I think everyone does that in relationships. I think it's just what's going to happen over a period of time, isn't it?
I mean, one of the things I noticed in all of the examples in this article was that most people have been married for between 15 and 20 years.
Yeah.
And we're at 19. So we're in the hot zone. We're in the heat area. We're in the Bermuda Triangle. So the second one.
So sheer boredom. Well, I think that.
The second one is the sex drought.
Well, I think all these tie in together. If you don't have emotional connection, I would say all those just come off the back of them. If you don't have emotional connection, boys, listen, and you're wanting sex, forget it. They're not really going to want it with you, because it can't become just about your penis. Because your penis on its own isn't enough. There's got to be an emotional connection.
There's got to be someone attached to it. Well, not always. I mean, not always, I suppose.
Well, there's got to be a sense of being cherished, cared for, loved, appreciated.
So it's an extension of an emotional connection.
Huge generalisation, massive generalisation again. And obviously there's many women that can be like this too. But I think more men than women, in all the experience I have of talking to many, many women over my whole life, is that men can still have sex even if everything else on the cards is not going well. Whereas a woman, more massive generalisation, would want more of an emotional connection, would want their partner to and it's not, boys, if you're getting confused, it's not all about like huge gestures and grand gestures. Sometimes it's just really, coming in and loading the dishwasher.
Well, that's the turn on.
Or just doing
something. Hang on, I've just got to go and unload the dishwasher.
To be supportive.
No, I know.
I mean, if you think about it, mostly when a woman like clears up or cooks or does any of that stuff, mostly their partner or their children wouldn't dream of saying thank you. I mean, they might be appreciative, but like if a man or the kids were to clean up or to cook a meal, the woman would have to make a huge, oh wow, this is amazing, oh thank you, and you've cleared up and you've had to. That's like that is a continuous balance that way, where the woman ends up, or the person, whoever that is, who's the one that's mostly doing the home stuff, starts to feel, oh my God, everybody expects this of me. And nobody likes anything to be expected, do they?
But sometimes there are situations, though, surely in relationships where the sex is non-existent for whatever reasons, okay? Let's not apportion even blame, but let's say we find ourselves 6 years down the line. We've had periods in our life where sex hasn't been in any way near where it's been prior to that. And if there's a sex drought, and it runs and it runs and it runs, I mean, this psychologist is saying that the line he hears so often between couples is, you drove me to it. Now, I don't think anyone drives anyone to do anything. You can miss something. I don't think that someone not wanting to have sex causes you to be unfaithful. But I can see the conditions there for someone accidentally in a strikeout for affection, for intimacy, for belonging, because I hear what you're saying, but not all sex.
The thing is, you're separating it again.
I'm not.
You're saying, so the thing is, you are, because you're saying, so yeah, I know all of that, but if somebody's not having sex.
But sometimes people are not having sex for reasons other than the fact that they're not emotionally connected.
More often than not, it's because there's no emotional connection or interest in each other.
But they might not have the language for that.
Or interest in each other anymore.
Right, yeah. Well, yeah.
So you can't just have sex outside of emotional connection, interest in each other, and you know, the third one, boredom.
Yeah.
Lack of intimacy. Too many people think intimacy is sex. There's all the intimacy that has to come before sex. You know, holding your partner's hair if they're throwing up, bringing them a paracetamol 10 times a day if they're not well, changing the sheets for them, puffing up their pillows, but maybe getting them their favourite chocolate bar. Maybe
so
just
cleaning the dishwasher and carrying buckets for sick. That's.
No, I mean, these are the things that are intimacy
yeah.
within a relationship, and too many people miss the point. And then say, oh, they don't want sex anymore, and then get a bit annoyed and a bit moody about it, and then that's the disintegration of the relationship. Then you're on a road to nothing, because then more, you know, distance becomes between those people, lack of even less communication. So it's almost like the sex drought has to come right at the bottom of all these other lists, because if all these other things aren't happening, the sex drought will come. Now, that's not to say that sometimes people just go off people.
Well, I was going to say, because you could do all of those things, clean the dishwasher, hold their head when they're being sick, you know, wipe the surfaces, do all of that stuff, and still there's a sex drought.
Yeah, sometimes people just go off sex, you know, for a whole load of other reasons. And what I would say is, if you're somebody that really doesn't want sex anymore with your partner,
right,
and that your partner still really loves sex, I would feel sorry for that partner.
What if I thought you were about to say that you should allow them to go and have sex elsewhere.
It's not about allowing, but I don't think you can be too shocked and horrified if you haven't had sex with somebody that loves sex, and you haven't had sex with them for 5 years and they go off and have sex, which you hear about all the time.
Right, okay.
You know, it's...
So that is kind of, you drove me to it, no?
Well, I think sometimes people do drive people to go and have affairs. Not always, but I think sometimes people do, because either because they've gone on completely different paths and there's nothing there for them anymore, or because they've treated somebody badly and the person doesn't feel loved or looked after.
But that goes back to that whole chicken and egg thing of, is it really a relationship if there isn't a sexual contingent to it? So I suppose that flags that.
Well, I think for many people, they have an amazing relationship without having sex. I think, again, it's everything that we are saying is with the caveat that this is generalisation.
Yeah. No, of course.
Nobody comment below and go, I just think, because we're saying this is generalising.
But just reading the sheer boredom, which is category number 3, or the third reason why people cheat. Women often cheat because they're bored, tired of waiting for their husband to engage. Men tell me they often become disengaged with their partners when their partners stop initiating sex. They want them to do it much more. The irony is, this psychologist says, is that in their affairs, these women tend to be more sexually assertive than in marriage. So that goes back to that worst fear of a husband, that actually not only are they having an affair, but having infinitely better sex with someone else.
I don't think it's fear of a husband. I think it's fear of anyone, isn't it?
Well, he's talking about women.
Well, I mean, God almighty, I've never heard such a generalisation in my entire life of that. Oh, and then they go off and then they really want to have sex. I for fear of sounding boring, it just keeps going back to the same thing. You can go to 10 different
She's not playing game with these 8 categories, is she?
10 different marriage guidance counsellors, and they say, unless you are communicating with each other, unless you are able to say, listen, I'm not happy in this area, or or we could work better, unless you're coming to the table of your marriage with some idea of what you want,
a backpack and a
some
pencil
idea
and
of
I
what
agree.
you're not getting, and you can't communicate with each other about that. Sometimes that might be a major row, sometimes that might have to be a letter, sometimes that might be sitting at the kitchen table with a bottle of wine or a cup of tea, whatever. If you, that's at the top of the pyramid, right? That's everything else collapses around it if you can't communicate. So a lot of people will try and communicate through sex. So they have a big argument. It's like, well, we have to have sex to make up. But not everybody works like that.
But I mean,
so I don't want to have sex when I've had an argument.
So what do you think the solution is? Do you think many relationships hit the rocks because many people haven't got the art, skill, experience, or have not been shown it's quite complicated, the ability to communicate? Because I mean, we had to go through a lot of shit to get to a place where we could even be inclined towards the work that's required to stay married or to stay together. Couples counselling, we talked about it a lot, I don't want to go there again. But I sort of stop and I think about relationships between people who either haven't had the luxury of couples counselling or just haven't had the language, don't even know that there's the possibility of going round approaching this in a different way.
I talk to people all the time when they're happy in a relationship, and I say, what do you want? And they don't know. See, the thing is, unless you know what you want, you can't ask for it. You can't even dream for it.
Ask me what I want.
No.
Because I can't think of it. I just, my brain.
And I do think, I do think it's a skill. Use the word skill. I think it's a skill. I think it's an ongoing learning, and some people just naturally have it. I don't think we naturally had it as a married couple at all.
No.
I think we still really struggle with it. I think we have to, and that's also because we're quite similar in the way that we communicate. So we still really struggle with communicating. We'll often avoid talking about stuff just because we know it will end in a blow up, and it's just like you get a bit weary and you think, oh, well, I just won't say anything.
Just happened a minute ago.
And I think a lot of people that will resonate with it will just say, oh, I just won't say anything. It's easy. I'll let it pass and I just won't say anything. And I think because it takes a lot of courage to be able to say to another person, I'm feeling this or I'm feeling that.
One of the things I think most couples need to do, and I think this is something that I still get really, if there's one thing that kind of really riles me or fires me up, it's not that you're proven right. It's not that you have seen through something I'm saying and you can see where I'm wrong. It's not the fact that I'm wrong. It's not the fact that I need to say sorry. It's not the fact that I'm right. It's whatever. It's none of those things. It's when an assumption has been made that must be what I'm saying or must be what I mean or must be where I'm coming from, simply because there's an example of that in the past. Because for me, surely the progress of a relationship is about trusting and accepting that change and adjustment to how one deals with things will come gradually, but will come. So an example could be that I do want to talk to you about something, you don't want to talk to me about it because you're worried that I'm going to be this or I'm going to be that. That makes me feel suddenly a bit, I don't want to be at all like that. And then suddenly I can say anything at some point within the conversation and you say, there we go. And it's the, there we go thing that drives me. And I do it with you. There we go. She's done that again. And actually, like you often say to me, Mark, you've written the script. Well, you write the script just as much as I write the script. And I think sometimes it's really hard. I'm just talking as an example, just to give it a bit of a personal context. I find it really hard sometimes that I feel like I'm the most predictable one in our rows or our disagreements, or when we're trying to sort stuff out. I feel like I'm always the one that, this is what he always says, this is what he always does. Whereas actually, quite often I'm not. I'm actually trying to shift my position on something or come at it in a slightly more progressive fashion or be a bit different and all those kinds of things. Whereas I think I don't get the chance to say to you, I suppose, actually, you're coming from the same place a lot on this, and this is really reductive, or this is really frustrating, or this is really, actually, that's not what I'm going to be like. If you didn't project that on me, I won't be like that too.
I mean, that is the funny thing about marriage, because verbatim, I could say exactly the same about Mark.
Yeah, but my point is you do a lot.
And I think that everybody, this is the problem, is like, I do say to Mark a lot, it's just like, sometimes I just stop halfway through speaking because you've already written it. So you go, I know this is what you're going to say, and it's like I wasn't even thinking in that, or what you're thinking. And I think that there isn't a relationship on the planet that doesn't do that. And I think that we also can give ourselves a break as humans for that. Because when you've lived with somebody 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 25 years, there is going to be a certain amount of that where you go, oh, here we go.
At what point
I know what's going to happen now.
I suppose the worry I always find, because I mean, obviously for both of us, we're in a 19-year marriage, which is completely new territory for both of us. At what point could that just become like one day you wake up? I always think this is how it's going to happen. One day you or I wake up and go, oh, I can't do that anymore. Can't do it.
Yeah, because it does happen to people.
Oh, fucking hell. Jesus.
What's the next one?
Hang on a minute. Fear of intimacy. An affair can be a way of sabotaging a safe relationship. If someone secretly fears emotional closeness or commitment because it makes them feel vulnerable, they may create a situation that makes the partner more inclined to do just that. I think this is about, love avoidance, isn't it? Is this about not... I think I related to parts of this about why I would dally and head off was because I didn't, I want to sabotage a safe relationship because I didn't think it was safe. Because I didn't think it was going to be safe enough, or how long could? Well, the very thing I was just saying there. Clearly, it's not going to be safe after 19 years. She's going to wake up tomorrow morning and it's going to be over.
But you've said something similar to that to almost every day for 19 years.
Oh right, okay. So is this
always think we're on the edge of it?
Well, maybe that makes me
maybe
try
you should just.
Yeah, but
Stop
because at the point that you rest on your laurels, that's when the juggernaut comes in from the side and takes the front of your car off and your nose. Okay, late rebellion is number 5.
We go for all of these, bloody hell.
If you were unable to express anger or rebel... Oh, this is interesting. If you were unable to express anger or rebel when you were growing up, having an affair can be an immature way of showing strong emotions.
Oh, God, absolutely. I think there's an awful lot of immaturity in affairs.
Yeah, no, I did that, but I know that my behaviour in my 20s was a sort of tear through the kind of atmosphere, a tear of fury through the atmosphere of, I lived a really boring teenage life. I want it now. And I remember feeling almost incandescent. I think I drank on that as well. I think that was probably the pour me a drink moment. I really related to that one too, actually, guys. You'd be pleased to know. A cry for help. It can be the one cheating is punishing the one cheating is punishing their partner. An affair can be a toxic way of bringing an intolerable state of distance to an end, or of trying to regain control if it's someone who feels unheard by their partner.
I can imagine that. If somebody's hardly looking at you when you walk into a room and isn't bothering with themselves and
is horrible to you.
You could see why, or not even just necessarily horrible, but just complacent, doesn't even notice you. And you could see, people need attention. People need to feel that they're important, that they're attractive and all of that stuff. So I do think if somebody is being totally taken for granted, that is a real danger in a relationship. Yeah. It really is, because if the boredom is set in and the lack of attention and no sex of course that's going to cause problems.
No amount of doing or changing the dishwasher is going to resolve that problem. No, that one. Emotional immaturity. This made me laugh, this one. It's kind of an obvious one. Emotional immaturity, cause for cheating. Incorporates self-awareness, empathy and communication. Emotional maturity incorporates those things, all of which are lacking when you cheat. Self-awareness, empathy and communication. An affair is an emotionally immature way of acting out your discontent. People say, actually, I just wanted to get my leg over, and that merely shows how unaware they are. It's a passive-aggressive way of expressing anger within the relationship.
Well, but we go back to intimacy there, and communication and connection.
Just going to keep saying those words.
The kind of person that does that is not interested. It's like the other day on Love Island, one of the guys went, well, I could have any of them. They're all gorgeous.
Yes.
And you just think,
oh
please God, never get married.
Yeah.
Never get married, because actually, they're all interchangeable. They're all good looking. They're just interchangeable. I'm not looking to connect with any of these people. I don't care who they are. I care about having sex with them, you know. So...
Well, yeah, emotional immaturity, though. I mean, how do you define it? It's kind of hard, isn't it?
Well, I mean, being sympathetic, there are some people that haven't been brought up in a way.
Well, that goes back to the category of person I'm talking about who just hasn't been shown a way.
Yeah, but if I wasn't shown a way.
I wasn't shown a way,
and you're with
and I've had to stumble my way to finding a way. Really, I mean, I wasn't shown a way by my mother.
To be fair, you are much younger than me, and you are, obviously, you are far more educated than me and academically.
Yeah, but my role model was
But emotionally, your emotional, not intelligence, because you do have emotional check, but your emotional maturity was rock bottom when I met you. I mean, really,
Yeah.
12-year-old.
Stupid. I was stupid,
But
guys.
some men never even grow out of that.
Oh, thank God I did.
Well, some women as well. Oh my God. I can just see the hammering underneath this for my generalisations.
Low confidence. Low confidence.
Sorry.
The final one is low
I love a
confidence.
generalisation.
Yeah, final one is, if we didn't have generalisations, we
Where
wouldn't
would we
talk.
be?
Last reason is low confidence. Often you want to prove to yourself that you're better than the person your lover is married to. Dare I say it, I've seen this a lot with women. They can describe in gory detail the awfulness of their lover's wife. I once said to a client, I wish you had as much awareness about yourself. They often want to understand why he won't leave her. The affair is an ego boost. So this is about women, or principally in this, having an affair. Very confused.
Muddled.
But it's about...
Well, they should have as much introspection as they are looking at the woman that he's had the affair with. It's a very sexist
This
person.
is a very
I like-
sexist list.
Who is this guy?
Let's find out. As told to Anna Max. Oh no, that's
it's
the
a
journalist.
woman.
Is it the journalist Anna Maxted? Anyway, well, this is in this is in the Times, that reputable publication. But anyway, dangerous liaisons. The 8 reasons people have affairs. Are there any reasons we haven't covered?
I think
Alcoholism, addiction.
No,
Addiction.
addiction, and I think
Addiction.
people get together with the wrong people.
Right.
I think sometimes people can be swept up with the idea of being in love and what marriage is, and not the reality of it, which is
Right.
a lot of hard work. And that's why it's wonderful that we have divorce. Think of the days when there was no divorce.
Right.
You know,
It's
because
true.
if you think how difficult it is to match somebody, I'm amazed anybody stays together.
Do you need to be sick?
No.
Well, because I'll just run and get a bucket quickly and hold your head whilst changing the dishwasher. Buy you some flowers.
Another reason for
Want
divorce.
to go for a meal?
Silly arse.